And welcome. It is Frankie and the ex-con, the naked truth you deserve to know. And I am so excited. We have done several of these episodes. By the way, more about sex down the road. Just letting everybody know because we were not complete with that sex conversation, GC Brown. We just were not. But we will be getting to that. It is so great to be talking. We as a we as a country really are not familiar with what's going on in our prisons, and so this podcast will be really and truly exploring the Innocence Project. We have so much to talk about. It is tremendous amount of information. But I wanted to talk with you, GC, and for those of you just joining us, GC, of course, spent almost 17 years of his life in federal prison for a crime that he did not commit. We hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I was innocent. I was innocent." I I want to know, how did you know somebody was telling the truth or they were innocent when you were behind bars? How could you tell?
So
Could you tell?
you can you get I spent my life making money and around a lot of different people, a lot of wheeler and dealers, a lot of fast talkers. So I'm pretty good at judging character, and not to mention you also see when you in federal prison you live 24/7. There's never a break. You understand and realize who people are very quickly. It does.
I wanted to ask you that because for many of us, we are not privy to this information. When you first get and you shared with us that you didn't know that you didn't know anything
No.
when you were first locked up, you thought that this cell with nobody and no one coming to you and your meals were brought to you, you thought that was the way it was going to be for all 17 years.
Yeah, I
No,
thought I was going to live in a 6x9 cell for the
yeah,
20-year sentence. I didn't even know you got good time. I didn't know. I thought I was doing 240 months. I mean, 17 years and 20 years. It's the same thing basically. But I didn't realize at that point that there was any such thing as good time. I'd never been in trouble for anything my whole life.
right. So this is what disturbs me about our penal system. How is it that you are white collar crime, did not kill anyone, did not even have the record that they claiming you had. Why is there such discrepancies?
So once you get over the 10-year mark, and it should be said, I had no record. I've never had a violent charge. I've never had a domestic. I've never had a drunken disorderly. I've never had a DUI. I've never had anything. A couple of speeding tickets in my 20s. That's it. So it's crazy, Frankie. In fact, I got to side thinking of stuff right there. I forgot your question. I get so aggravated about what
No,
happened that
I
I
just
get sidetracked. It was a long time.
I want to know how you pass the time, but before we go there, the discrepancies between
Oh
what
yeah.
you're getting and what people that commit murder are out in 10 years. I cannot wrap my head around this,
Listen,
GC Brown.
I went to. They claimed that I didn't pay $480,000 in taxes in 2005. It was fabricated. It was a lie. They actually bumped that up to $2 million, which was even more of a lie. Um, but uh, they just it's different, Frankie. It's just whatever judge you get, however they wake up. I was with murderers and bank robbers and mobsters. These guys all got less time than I did. Drug lords. I say it all the time. I'd have been better off to sell cocaine, bring it in by the boatload. I'd have been better off to be a drug dealer. I'd have been better off to have a murder charge. I'd have been better off to have a record. I'd have been better off. I'd have got less time. It's just it's unfathomable. And there were other white collar guys that I tell the story all the time of the big shot attorney Shapiro stole $480 million from his clients. His restitution is $480 million. He lived across the hall from me. He went to trial in a different state. He went to trial, got 17 years. I went to trial for 480 grand. I got 20 years. He got
Isn't that
480 million.
so? How do we as a country fix this? Can we fix it?
You can. There's it just has to be rules and regulations and prosecutors and FBI agents, and these people have to be held accountable. And when they get caught lying and they get caught making up things and they get caught witness tampering, which they did all of it in my case, when they get caught, they need to be fired. They need to be penalized. They need to be put in. They need to be spent. They need to spend time. In my opinion, a judge or a prosecutor should have to spend a week in prison. Just spend a
Oh,
week.
at least, at least.
Spend a week in prison before you're allowed to give away these sentences that you're giving. There are people still in prison right now on marijuana
I
charges.
know it.
It's legal in
It's
38 of the
so
50
insane.
states. It's
It's
legal.
so insane. It's so
It's
insane.
insane. It's insane. I have buddies that are still sitting there for 20 and 30-year sentences for marijuana. And they
Oh
talk
my
about in the
God.
news. They talk about in the news that, oh, Biden did this pardon and Trump did this pardon and this president did this pardon for all these marijuana guys. No, they didn't. They're still in prison. I know them personally. Personally, I have them on email and phone calls, and they're still there. Meanwhile, it's legal in 38 states.
Absolutely.
It's insane.
Absolutely.
And it's
There's
marijuana. It's not heroin. It's not, nobody's dying from marijuana.
and it's legal, as you said, in 38 states, and
38 states.
recreationally, it's even more. Okay. How how do we wrap how do we wrap this around? How do we understand the discrepancies? The discrepancies.
I don't even know how you'd under. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I spent 17 years staring at the bottom of the bunk. I don't have that answer. And on top of it, how does a guy like me who's never had a background, never been in trouble, have never had a violence, they stick me in a gang unit in Texas. They didn't even keep me near my family. They put me in a gang unit in Texas.
How does that happen?
I never even before prison. Never even knew a gang member. I never even knew anybody that was ever in a gang. I ended up in a gang unit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
and managed to come out with no violence, no fighting shots, no shots to speak of. I got a couple of stupid little things for contraband in the locker and green peppers and onions and stuff that you buy from the kitchen just to survive. You catch little shots like that, but nothing that kept me from my good time, nothing that kept me from coming home early, none of that. I did all the classes. I did everything I could to get out of there as fast as possible. And even during COVID, they released killers and drug lords and everybody during COVID. I wasn't one of
Wow.
them they released. You
Wow.
you take a guy out of society that's paying a couple $100,000 a year at least in taxes. You put him in federal prison. You pay $40,000 a year to house him, and you let murderers and drug dealers out.
It just that's why we're doing this show. We will be investigating in the episodes to come forth. We are going to really examine how this is happening, how people that are innocent. And I asked you when we first came on today, I asked you the question, GC Brown, how did you know who is friend and who is enemy? When you realized that this was the prison world, what made you gravitate toward those that you became friends with?
Frankie, I don't even know. Looking back, I can't. My first stop, I stopped at a gang unit. The white guys came up to me. They said I had 30 days to get my paperwork in to make sure that I had told on nobody, and then proceeded to hand me a knife and said, "Keep this on you at all times." That's my first experience on a prison yard.
You got a knife?
I didn't. I refused it, and they said, "Listen, you're gonna need it. You have to keep it on you. Don't get caught without it." I got rid of it. I was scared to death. I never. Now I'm gonna get in fights with knives, and it's just prison's like
Wow.
something you've never seen. Never seen. I got my paperwork, showed that I was good, showed that I went to trial, and I tried to stay by myself as much as I could. In prison, it's pretty segregated. The fact that I was out in Texas and from South Florida, I ended up in rather than run in the white boy car, they ran in what they call cars, and I just stayed with the guys from the South. So I stayed out of everybody's business. I minded my own business. I learned real quick what to do and what not to do. You're gonna learn the rules. There's no you're gonna learn the rules. People take for granted that people get killed in prison for cutting a line. People get killed in prison for opening a microwave when it's not their food in there. People get killed in prison for changing a TV channel when they thought nobody was watching it. Prison is not like people think it is. It's a war zone. It's a place that has its own currency. It has its own drugs. It's its own world. They make their own liquor. They everybody runs a certain thing. They've shot colors for cars, and it's a world. It's an underground world.
Talk to me about how you make your own liquor in prison.
So you take, I actually did this for a while just to see. That's when I originally started off before I kind of started to make the transformation. I said that I wanted to move to the Caribbean when this was all done and make rum or vodka. So, and I had this idea before prison happened. I just hadn't gotten around to it. So long before Tito's, long before any of these guys, I had the idea to make my own rum or vodka. So anyway, I get to prison and I overhear rumblings of hooch, what they call its prison liquor. And it's basically rotting fruit that you leave sit until it stinks so bad that you have to hide it inside the walls behind the showers. You have to put downy sheets on top of it. You have to keep it in a bag. There's all kinds of crazy things because if the cops smell it, the whole unit's getting locked down. So
Right.
there's
Right.
problems. There's problems, violence and riots and everybody else because you got 300 men locked down for two guys making hooch. So yeah, it's a process, but it's rotting fruit that sometimes they don't sell sugar, so you'll use soda. You have to mix it all together, and the fruit rottens and burns off the sugar. You have to use Coca-Cola, Sprite, cocoa powder, whatever you can do to get to make it. And sometimes it doesn't taste great, but it does the job, and it's that's a whole racket. That's a whole racket in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, there are all types of YouTube videos and on how to make prison hooch and how to. I got to the point that I got so good at making the hooch, we actually set up a still. I went to the guys out in the heating and air conditioning, and got copper tubing and actually built a still inside of one of the rooms, and we burned it off. It ended up being white lightning, and we called it GC's white lightning. And that's what a little honey bottle, a little honey jar was $50. So it was a pretty crazy thing in and of itself.
When you first got to prison, what what did you how did you take every day and figure out, man, this is it. What am I going to do?
Uh, I don't know. To tell you the truth, Frankie, I don't. Every day was different. So I, I ended up getting into a routine and fall in love with the writing. And that worked out pretty great. And I got into my own routine where I kind of stayed away from people and I worked on myself. I told you early on that I set a few goals. One, to become a better human being. Two, to be a New York Times bestselling author. And three, to uh, well, that was the top two. Those are the two things that I worked on, and I did it every day.
And you also worked with the power of intention, and explain to us a little bit about that, please.
So I'm going to back all the way up to the secret, what came out and what made everything kind of popular or mainstream, to having to do with law of attractions, was the book and the video called The Secret. Rhonda Byrne, I think, or something was her name, that came out with it. So one day somebody handed me that CD of that and said, you remind me of the people on this. Well, I threw it in the car and I never really paid much attention to it. And then one day, one Thanksgiving, the kids went to grandma's house early. I'm cleaning out the car, and I come across that CD. I said, "Let me just pop this in and see what it is." It was actually a DVD, not a CD. I popped in the DVD, and it ended up being The Secret and the Law of Attractions, all that kind of stuff. So that was my first real understanding that I was actually doing something that was actually a thing. And I just never knew it was called that. So when I get to prison, somebody turned me on to the book Power of Intentions by Dr. Dyer, Wayne Dyer. And,
Wayne Dyer, yes.
and it became I never read another, I don't know if you want to call it self help, inspiration. I'm not sure what those books are. Probably self help is what they're categorized under. I never read another one because I realized after reading The Power of Intention, that's what I was doing, and it was working. It had worked my entire life. So like I said, I found out that that was actual a thing, law of attractions. I had never heard that. I was from a small farm in Indiana. I had never heard anything like that. So what it was actually
He was
labeled.
something else, boy. I got a chance to interview him several times in my life and introduce him at a couple of events in Boston, but he was an extraordinary man.
Yeah,
So, and his background and his beginnings were really rough as well.
right. Yeah, extremely. So
And I think that what you're doing with your life today, GC Brown, is the power of intention. You're living it because you did not allow a bad rap, 17 almost 17 years in prison, to stop you from creating. And you were able to write some books in prison. You learned how to write. You became a writer. You created the formulation for your Up Cup Coffee with a K company, and you created and manifested the lovely wife that you have
yeah,
today and the twin boys. And so you did that. You did all of that with that power of intention. And I think that we allow people, places, and things to get in the way instead of allowing the power of intention to take you where you need to go.
right. And to better explain or easier explain it to our listeners, it, I say now because power intentions everybody doesn't get. So the easiest way that for me to get it and understand it and to explain it, what you say out of your mouth, your brain is going to make work right. I don't care if
That's right.
it's
That's
good
right.
or
Even if
bad.
it's yeah, yeah.
Good or bad. I said that I was gonna. I had never. I was only 120 pages into writing. Period. Never written anything before. At 120 pages, I set the goal that I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller. Not a bestseller, the number one bestseller. And I came out of prison 15, 16 years. Well, I guess I started writing about 6, 7 years in. So I came out of prison 10 years later with both these series. And Sniff was the first one to release, and it's headed up the charts. I also said that I was going to be a better human being, and that is I get better every day. I also said at that time, I wanted to open the liquor company, like I said. And as I started to change a little bit, I decided that there was enough liquor in the world. I wanted to do some sort of health drink. So I sat there and thought and thought and thought about. At that time, it was either going to be a fat loss shake or a supplement shake or something like that. That there weren't a whole bunch of those when I went to prison. So something along those lines, something healthy to help people. So when I get home, finally in November of 23, I look around at all these supplements and the shakes and the fat losses and the Ozempics and all the world's just gone crazy on that kind of stuff. And I didn't see a space for me. So
Yes.
what I ended up creating was a functional mushroom coffee called Up Cup Coffee with a K that's doing tremendous. And it's just, it's the manifestation. I said years ago, in fact, before COVID, just before COVID, 3, 4 years before COVID, I had really started hammering in on some logos and coming up with some stuff that I wanted to add into some sort of health drink. And lo and behold, it wasn't liquor and it wasn't a fat loss shake, but it is a health drink. It turned out to be, like I said, the functional mushroom coffee, and it's
So
doing tremendous.
one of your partners was an MD, an emergency room doctor in
Yes.
prison, who
Yep.
also was innocent.
Yeah, you know that today, so he did a small sentence, 3 years, I think he did. I think he ended up doing, I think the sentence was 3 months and he ended up doing 18 or 24 months or something like that. But got out. What they charged him with back then is not even illegal today. They let him out. He got out of prison, did his whole sentence, went back, got his medical license back, and is now practicing again as a full time. He went back to, instead of a practice, he went back to the emergency room. He really liked the emergency room, so he works in 3 different emergency rooms in the Mississippi area, and loves it. But what he did, what they convicted him, it's not even a crime today. It's just it was an overzealous prosecutor that these guys get out of law school. Their first stop is generally either a public defender or a prosecutor and a DA, and they try to make a name for themselves. They seek and destroy. Our government does not care about innocence. You know, if it was me on the other end, and maybe not always in my life, but the person I am today, if I found somebody that I believed was guilty of a crime, Frankie, and we did all the investigation and we found out that it was false, I would be happy to go back and say, hey, you know what?
You
My
made a
bad.
mistake. Yeah.
We made a mistake. Hey,
Yes,
good job. You're
absolutely.
good job. You're
Absolutely.
not guilty. You're They don't do that. They
But,
don't care.
they don't do
They'll
that, and
fabricate.
we have a case in Boston that's getting national publicity, the Karen Reed case, and she was found, there was no verdict whatsoever the first time, and they pulled the jury, and they all said she was innocent. Now the second trial has begun, and it's even more of a witch hunt, and I can feel that it's the tides are now turning against her, and it is just unbelievable what is happening in this case.
They're
And
not. They're allowed to lie, Frankie. They're allowed to cheat. They're allowed to witness tamper. They're
it
allowed to
just
bribe. It's
it
crazy.
really it's so sad. It is so sad. We will also be talking about the Innocence Project, and but there, what would you say the majority of your prison mates were innocent? Is it
Uh,
probably 40%, 30%?
oh, no, 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 no. That would be a high number. That would be a high number. There's most of the guys that are in prison did either what they were charged of or something very close. I'll give you. There's a lot, a huge amount of people that are in prison, Frankie. The government will say the government will catch, or an agent will catch somebody with, I don't know, pick an amount of drugs. Say 1 key. So you get caught with the key of cocaine. Get caught, get arrested, get in there. They'll get to their indictment, and the indictment is say 3, 4, 5 keys, and they're like, I never had 3 or 4 or 5 keys, and they'll say, "Oh well, you were tied to this organization. You sold a quarter of that weed to Johnny over here, and Johnny deals with all these guys, and so you're getting all their drugs too." That it's unbelievable. Some of these guys are just regular, for lack of a better word, street hustlers, and they had small amounts of drugs, but they're not. The government doesn't care about the small amount of drugs. They want to be able to say, "Hey, we took down this guy, and he sold 5 keys in the last year. He sold 10 keys in the last year." Most of these guys never had that amount of drugs in their entire life. They never had that kind of money that came with it. They never sold to half the people that's on their indictment that the government claims they sold to. It's all there's a large percentage of those, especially in the drug dealer world. A lot of those guys never had the amounts that they were charged with, but they give them those amounts to jack up the sentences rather than send them away for 3, 4, 5 years. The government, our government, wants to give you 10-year minimum mandatories or more. It's ridiculous.
You know, um, at this moment in time, you mentioned that you still correspond. What are the uh, things that you can do while you're in prison today? Can you receive emails and letters and all of that? And what about cell phones?
Well, so no cell phones, although they're all over the prison system because you can't stop the drones from coming over the top of the fence and dropping off the packages, and you can't stop greed, and
Wait
you
a
can't.
minute. Wait a minute. There are
Yeah.
drones that are dropping
Oh,
off these cell phones. Yes.
I was in
Yeah.
Ohio. I was in Ohio. I'm sorry. I was in Pennsylvania. I was standing at shortstop on an evening game, a softball game. So I'm watching out in front of me something just beyond the trees, and I can't tell what it is. I've been in prison for so long. I didn't know what a drone or anything was,
Oh, of
but
course.
I see a package drop.
Oh my,
And
what did you think?
I said, "What the?" And it was another softball field away. But I seen something drop, and I knew it dawned on me right away. Somebody just got a package in, but I had no idea. I mean, you hear about drones and all that. I had never seen it. So, of course, later on the compound, it got dropped in the evening time versus getting dropped overnight. There was a mistake made. The package ended up getting caught. Complete compound lockdown. They caught it on the cameras. But once they realized that they could get it in at that institution, they just changed up the drop spot and changed up the time. They drop it in the middle of the night when everybody's inside. The guards aren't watching the rec yard. They drop and they open the rec yard at dark the next morning. They open the rec yard at 5:45 in the morning. So wintertime, it's still dark. So you go out there, you move the snow around. They tell you exactly where they drop it. Guys would go out, they'd sneak a cell phone out.
So crazy. That is so crazy.
Listen, they'd sneak a cell
Wow.
phone out of the unit, keep it in front of them, stand on third base, lock in the coordinates of that third base, send that back to their people on the streets. The next morning, they go out there, there's a package on top of third base.
So is that how drugs are smuggled? And I want you, don't answer that. That will be our next episode. This is This is it for today. I am Frankie. He is GC Brown. Frankie, the ex-con and the naked truth you deserve to know. And the best website, go ahead and give it for your books
The books
and
is
and the coffee.
and the coffee. The books are gcbrownbooks.com. They're all novels. Everything is fiction, fun reads, a lot of work and time into them. The coffee is Up Cup Coffee, coffee with a K.com. You can find it on Amazon, soon to be Walmart, soon to be Target. It's in a bunch of different places, but
Awesome.
functional mushroom coffee, great coffee.
Thanks for being with us, everybody. This has been another edition of Frankie and the ex-con. Make it a great day. And as always, smile.